Hello and welcome to West Country Wanderings. Welcome to one of my canal series videos. Also in my Devon series today, we're just outside the city of Exeter, one of two large cities in the county of Devon, and it has a canal. A very important canal, because this canal, which is just over to my right, which we'll have a look at shortly, is the Exeter Ship Canal. It was built some time ago, well before the canal mania of the 1700s. It was actually built in the 1560s. Well, they're not entirely certain, sometime between the 1540s and 1560s. And like a lot of the canals, like the Stroud Water and the Thames and Severn and the Kennet and Avon and the Bute Canal, which we have covered on the channel previously, there is very little documentation about this one. But we do know some of the background to why it was built, and I'll tell you a little bit about that now. Now, the story of how this ship canal came to be built is rather interesting and fascinating. In the 1200s, in fact before then, much before then, Exeter was an important port. It sits on the tidal River Exe estuary, the mouth of which is at Exmouth, but that was of considerable less important in those days. Exmouth, of course, now where the River Exe meets the sea, is a tourist resort complete with its beaches. That's long before Exeter was important as a shipping port. Now, the Countess of Devon, one Isabella de Fortibus, decided to build a weir. Now, the reason she wanted to build a weir was to power her mills, which she had many of in the Exeter area. And that had caused an immediate problem, because it blocked access of the ships going up the River Exe from the English Channel to make their way into Exeter's port. There were lots of complaints. The weir is now remembered by the famous Countess Weir Roundabout. Long gone, of course, the weir itself. In 1290, the weir was either cut through or completely removed, because the access of the ships to Exeter port was restored once more. However, that wasn't the end of the poor shipping people's trade in this area's problem in terms of getting into Exeter. Isabel's cousin, one Hugh de Courtenay, also decided to build a weir. He also built a new port at nearby Topsham. I have actually visited Topsham previously on the channel. I'll put a link into that video in the description of this one here today. Topsham is effectively Exeter's port, was for many years, but still they needed access to get into the city of Exeter. So considerations were then taken into place as to what could be done to alleviate the problem of the weir blocking access into Exeter city centre. Lots of problems and solutions were looked at in order for that to happen. For the next 250 years, the Exeter petitioned the king constantly to have the route, the waterway route, completely restored, rather than having to upload to Topsham and then having the trouble of getting all the goods from Topsham into the city itself. Unfortunately, it was to no avail. Because it hadn't been used for so long period of time, the river channel had completely silted up and it was unusable. The city folk of Exeter were not beaten. They employed the services of one John Drew from Glamorgan in South Wales to have a look at the possibility of having a canal. Now, canals had not been built in the UK before, so I'm not sure where the idea of building a canal came from. Now, China has been building canals for thousands of years, but it was an original idea to build one here in the UK, in the southwest of England. Work completed in 1564. So it was done quite rapidly. It's amazing how it takes some time to get anything done today in terms of construction and like HS2 and road repairs, that sort of thing. But yes, it was done over a very short period of time. It was also known in terms of its engineering success because it was the first waterway to have pound locks. In fact, there were 3 locks along the length of the Exeter Ship Canal. Now, because it was for catering for shipping, it's 3 feet deep and 16 feet wide, so much wider and deeper and bigger than the other canals we've looked at here on West Country Wanderings. So this is Topsham Lock Swing Bridge, and it does open because I saw a boat going through it earlier on. I'll put a clip of that in now. And you have a choice of two walks. We're going to walk down to the double locks. Now if we go first left here, that takes us on the cycle route, which gets quite busy. So we're going to go over the swing bridge, go down the opposite bank. Hopefully it's a bit quieter. I'll tell you some more about the history of this canal. So there you get a good sense of the width of the Exeter Ship Canal. It actually reminds me, in terms of width, the Gloucester and Sharpness, originally called the Gloucester and Berkeley Canal, which I live not that far to, back in Gloucestershire, but that was built much later than this one here in Devon. Canal doesn't run exactly straight down, although it does in effect run parallel to the River Exe. The River Exe is just the other side of the country park there, which I started filming the video. But yes, it got these bends in it, presumably for following the contour line, although there was probably some significant engineering construction to build the canal up over the lower lying land. Now, True's original navigation was not very effective, and that was because it couldn't be accessed at all points on the tide, high tide, low tide, and it meant that goods still had to be transferred. So still a further solution to the city's waterways problems had to be sorted out. Now, those improvements were as follows. In 1677, the canal was extended and the entrance was moved downstream to Topsham. In 1701, the canal was deepened and widened to allow the passage of ocean-going ships. Now, trade continued on the canal right in the 18th century until the early part of the 19th century, and most of the trade was actually from the mills, the woolen trade, but that sadly declined the early part of the 19th. In the 19th century, there were many schemes to reinvigorate the canal and join it to the rest of the canal network, because by the early part of the 19th century, the rest of the canal network was flourishing. One of those schemes, of course, was the Grand Western Canal, which was to link Exeter with the important port and the city of Bristol. We've now arrived at Double Locks, complete with its pub. If you live in and around the Exeter area, I'm sure you're very, very familiar with this particular hostelry. So today there is quite a wide basin here. You can see that river cruiser coming down the ship canal from Exeter, heading south towards the River Exe. And lots of people using it on canoes as well on this mid-August day. Now, though the canal continues on down there to meet the River Exe, I'm not going to walk all the way down there today. You can see that it is less used at that point. A lot of the boats and canoes turn around in the basin behind me. Now, though the canal failed to connect to the rest of the canal network, at the start of the Second World War, it was still carrying some 63,000 tonnes of material annually. And after the war, it was still seen as a useful means of transporting goods to and from its basin, haven banks opposite Exeter Quay. View there of Exeter Cathedral in the distance in the city centre with the Exeter Ship Canal beneath it. Incredibly, planning for the Exeter Ship Canal continued into the Second World War, where it was recommended that Turf Lock, which is the canal's junction with the River Exe, be widened and deepened to allow ships of 600 tonnes to pass through it. One of the last regular commercial uses of the Exeter Ship Canal was Esso and the tanker, the Esso Jersey, which served the Esso oil terminal in Exeter. The ship was later known as the Keeler, but it was scrapped by 1984. Now, unlike other canals that I cover here on West Country Wanderings, the Exeter Ship Canal is not owned and managed by the Canals and Rivers Trust, neither is it a charity canal trust run by volunteers. Instead, it's managed by Exeter City Council. Now, fortunately, ships can access it so regularly these days because of the Countess Weir. There is both a lift bridge and a swing bridge there. Now, one of those I think was put in the start of the Second World War, another one during a road widening scheme in the 1970s. And both of those really need to be replaced properly to allow more craft to use this wonderful ship canal properly. Instead, these days, the Exeter Ship Canal is a wonderful wildlife haven and a great place for people to enjoy the canal, both walking beside it, running, cycling, or indeed on it on canoes and the occasional leisure craft as we have seen. Now, surrounding the canal is lots of green space. There's also some lakes here by as well. Just seen some people fishing in the lake. The towpath is just up there, so you just come down that slope and you've got this stretch of woodland here as well. So there's great green space around here. And the towpath that I chose, the one that's, well, closest to the railway station at Marsh Barton, which I've just done a separate railway series video about, is much quieter. And on the opposite bank, there's lots of people out cycling, walking, running, and generally enjoying themselves, because this is the first dry day in August we've had for a little while, so don't blame them. Though the sun hasn't made an appearance, it is lovely and dry here today, so that's really good. And it's great to see the canal being used once more, although much less now for commercial purposes and virtually solely for the leisure industry. The Exeter Ship Canal holds a rightful place in being the first proper canal in the United Kingdom. As I say, it's well before the Telfords and the Brindleys and the canal mania of the 18th century. And it's terrific too to see it still being used as a canal. Its original function, I'd say, although it's not commercial, it's now leisure, but lots of people enjoying it that live in and around the Exeter area. I hope you've enjoyed this little video today here on one of my canal series looking at the Exeter Ship Canal here in Devon. I do lots of videos about canals, ones that are open like this one here, and ones that are waiting restoration or have been partially restored. If you like that sort of thing, why not head over to my canal playlist where you'll find some 40 plus videos I've done so far in canals in the wider West Country area. I do hope to go back to Cornwall again soon to have a deeper dive into the history of the Bude Canal, because that is truly fascinating. Until next time on West Country Wanderings, take care of yourselves, look after yourselves, and I hope to see you hereabouts again very soon. All the best for now. Bye bye.